Veteran Sonic fans are familiar with the picture sitting on the president's desk in the game Shadow the Hedgehog. It's a simple photo of Sonic and Shadow in front of the White House, but it's garnered so much attention and speculation from many fans. Why does the president even have a picture of Sonic and Shadow on his desk? Well, Sonic and Shadow did save the world from getting destroyed, so it makes sense that the president would hold them in such high regard. Some fans make fun of the president, but people forget Eggman did threaten him in Sonic Adventure 2. He's like, if you don't submit to the Eggman Empire, I'm just gonna wipe your country off the face of the planet. So, in that regard, I think it's understandable that he has a picture of the two sitting on his desk. They saved the United Federations, they saved the world, and most importantly, they saved his re-election run for president. So, I don't think it's weird. I mean, I'm not even the president, and I would love to have that picture of Sonic and Shadow on my desk. But what I want to know is how this all came to be. I want to know what had to be done to make this photo happen, because it's not like these two are easy to get a hold of, especially Shadow. Obviously, this happened after the events of Sonic Heroes, but how was this all coordinated? It makes sense that Sonic would be enthusiastic to do stuff like this, but how did they get Shadow the Hedgehog to show up at the White House? This is my speculation. It's likely that Rouge had a hand in setting this up since she works for the president. Yes, that is her boss. Not only did she get in touch with Shadow, I'm certain that she also reached out to Sonic to get him to the White House. So they're both there to take the picture, but I want to know who else was there. I'm sure the president and his secretary were there to shake their hands or whatever, but was Rouge there to make sure nothing crazy was gonna happen? Or did she tell her boss, okay, I dropped the boys off. I'm gonna take the rest of the day off because finding these two was more work than I bargained for. Was the press there? Was this just a 10-minute photo op? Or did the White House make a whole event out of this? Did the president provide lunch? If he did, what kind of food did the White House serve? Was it chili dogs or something fancier than that? There's a lot to dissect with the picture itself. Sonic gives a big smile and a thumbs up to the camera while Shadow is facing away. Why does Shadow turn his back to the camera? Was he not expecting the picture to be taken? Is he camera shy? Or did he pose that way to look cool? What was Shadow even thinking during that moment? The poor boy was suffering from amnesia. He must have been so confused. Did he even know where he was? What was Sonic thinking throughout all this? Did he try to make conversation with Shadow? If he did, what did they even talk about? It can't just be about the weather. They went through so much together in Sonic Adventure 2. When they fought the Bio-Lizard together, you could really feel the connection they shared. Sonic would say, Shadow, everyone is waiting for us back on Earth. Shadow even tells Sonic that he thinks he might be the ultimate life form. Coming from Shadow, that is the compliment of all compliments. He basically told Sonic, I think you are the most perfect life form that has ever existed. They truly cared about each other. So, from Sonic's perspective, I'm sure that probably stings that Shadow doesn't remember any of that. So, I wonder if he asked Shadow if he seemed to remember anything or if he's doing okay. One thing I noticed in Shadow the Hedgehog is Sonic is really nice and supportive of Shadow in a lot of their missions and cutscenes. I wonder if it was in that moment where he tried to reconnect and rebuild their relationship. Was the gun commander there? I doubt it, but wouldn't that be so awkward? Sonic and Shadow are getting ready to take the picture, and he's just standing there, glaring at Shadow. And poor Shadow doesn't know him or remember anything, and maybe he's wondering, why do I feel this hostile aura? What is going on? Oh, and the gun commander would be prepared in the event that Shadow acts a little out of line. But what happened after the photo shoot? Did Shadow have his Chaos Emerald so he could chaos control out of this awkward situation? But what if he didn't have a Chaos Emerald? He did have to find the first Chaos Emerald at the beginning of Shadow the Hedgehog, so there is a chance that he didn't have one when he was taking that photo. Did Sonic show Shadow around the city after they took the picture? Okay, this is less likely, but what if this wasn't even a photo op? Sonic just decided to drag Shadow to the White House and other significant areas around the world. Sonic's like, I'm gonna show you the whole world, baby. And he forces Shadow to take pictures with him everywhere they go. And then Sonic he faxed the White House picture to the president. And the president was so touched by it that he printed it out and proudly displayed it on his desk. Again, probably not the case, but the idea of Sonic dragging Shadow around is funny to me. I really would love to know what went down. I really want to know these things, but I don't think Sonic's team will ever share what actually happened. The only thing we can do is fill in the gaps ourselves and maybe write a fanfic about it. Honestly, that's what they want. They want us to speculate and talk and write fanfics and make fan art and buy their brand new Sonic game, and then the cycle repeats itself. I don't know about SEGA West, but SEGA of Japan loves when Sonic fans write fanfiction. People don't believe me, but they have been encouraging it for a while. Notably, I think about Sonic Channel's Shadow and Infinite artwork for January 2023. Before Sonic Channel posted their version of the story, they asked, "What are Shadow and Infinite doing? What kind of dialogue or narration would you give them? You can choose to go with the usual atmosphere and lore of the two characters, or you can go bold. Feel free to have fun with it." In other words, come on, fanfic writers, give us something good. Sonic Channel is even opening up dialogue submissions for their 2024 calendar artwork. They are encouraging people to write their own dialogue and stories based on each month's artwork and share it with them. They really want to see Sonic fans engaged in their work. And I think that's really great. I know people, mostly men, make fun of fanfic writers, but writing your own fanfic, or stories in general, is a great way to express yourself and further explore something you're passionate about. Creative writing has become a lost art. Growing up in school, we were encouraged to write creative stories and have fun with it. But as we got older, those stories became research essays on some topic that you probably don't care for. And then by the time you start your career, you may not be expected to write as much as you used to, or at all. At least working in the business field, we don't have the opportunity to utilize our creativity, especially if you work in accounting. But the thing is, writing will follow you everywhere, even if it's not in the creative genre. Using the corporate America work environment as an example, you have to communicate professionally through email, you may have to write a report or put together a presentation. Writing is a challenge for a lot of people, myself included. The reason why I take so long to upload video essays is because I struggle with writing and trying to eloquently express my thoughts onto paper. But I do think it comes easier as I try to write on a daily basis. Every day, it gets a little easier, but you gotta do it every day. That's the hard part. But it does get easier. To practice writing, even if it is a fanfic, you are strengthening and stimulating your brain. With enough time, you can better articulate yourself. Additionally, maybe you're learning new words along the way and expanding your vocabulary. So I encourage fanfic or any other form of creative writing 1000%. Don't knock it until you try it. The best part is you don't have to post it if you don't want to. I know this is a strange tangent from the Sonic and Shadow picture discussion, but I do think people can benefit writing stories or analyses of their passions, even if you don't share it with anyone. SEGA of Japan doesn't seem to think it's cringy, so you shouldn't either. With that said, I have a writing prompt to those who want to write about something. What is your version of events for the Sonic and Shadow picture? It doesn't have to be lengthy. You could write what happened before the photo, during the photo, or after the photo, or all three if you really want to. But if you're more into fan art than writing, then feel free to make artwork of it. So, in my version, The president was so inspired by Sonic and Shadow's presence that he just decided to legalize gay marriage, and it was amazing. It eliminated homophobia. If only it were that easy in real life. But after the photo op, they have a 30-minute karaoke party, and Sonic was all about that because he loves karaoke. Shadow was sitting in the back observing everyone, but deep down, he was secretly amused. Now, this happened in 2004, 2005-ish, so they were singing songs by Britney Spears, Avril Lavigne, Beyoncé, Evanescence, all the iconic hits during that time. Before they knew it, 30 minutes had passed, and the president is a very busy man. His next appointment was tea time with the Princess of Soliana. As they were leaving the White House, Sonic notices that Shadow seems confused, so he tries to talk to him. "Hey, Shadow, are you all right?" Shadow hesitates to answer Sonic's question, but eventually he blurted out, "What is gay marriage, and why are humans making a big deal out of it? I don't understand these human customs." Now, Sonic is taken aback by Shadow's question, but he immediately thinks of an idea. "Well, Shadow, I don't really know how to explain it or put the process into words, but we can go to the courthouse right now so you can experience gay marriage for yourself." So Shadow takes a moment to think about Sonic's offer, but he feels reluctant to do so. He would much prefer an explanation, but if this was really as complex as Sonic is making it out to be, then maybe it's worth experiencing it in person. But as Shadow hesitates, Sonic tells him that if he wants to have the gay marriage experience, then he better decide now because the courthouse closes at 5 p.m. on the dot. So Shadow agrees and says, "Okay, thank you, Sonic. I'm surprised that you're being so civil towards me." So they go to the courthouse, and because they save the world, they get the celebrity treatment and get to cut all the lines in bureaucracy. So the marriage clerk performs a ceremony, and they repeat their vows, and then it's official. They're totally married. While Shadow doesn't feel any different, he enjoyed the process of reading the vows. He says, "I did not know humans could be so poetic." You see, Shadow is a poet at heart. Before he got amnesia, he enjoyed reading books and writing stories and poetry with Maria when they lived together on the space colony Ark. So afterwards, Shadow meets up with Rouge, and Rouge is such a great friend. She's checking in on Shadow and making sure he's doing okay physically and mentally. She asks him about his day and how the photo shoot went with the president. So Shadow opens up about it, and then he tells her how he got to experience this thing called gay marriage with Sonic. Of course, Rouge is completely floored by the news. She spits out her drink and is asking how the heck this happened. And Shadow explains what Sonic told him and how marriage is this poetic ceremony that two rivals do together to eternalize their rivalry. And Rouge is like, "Oh, sweetie, no." So she has to explain to him what marriage really is and what it means. So Shadow is feeling a range of emotions. Obviously, he is livid and very confused. He's angry at Sonic for tricking him, but he's also upset with himself for being so easily fooled by Sonic. However, there is a part of him that feels flattered that Sonic, of all people, would go through the trouble to marry him, and that makes it even more confusing. So Rouge pulls out her flip phone, because it's the 2000s, and she calls Sonic. Well, actually, she calls Tails' landline, because Sonic doesn't have a phone or a home. She asks Tails, "Can you pass the phone to Sonic, please?" So Sonic answers the phone, and she's chewing him out, asking him, "Why on earth did you think this was a good idea?" But all Sonic could say is, "Oh, it's just a prank." But Rouge is seeing through his BS and tells him, "You sure went through a lot of trouble to make this prank happen." So they start roasting each other over the phone, and neither of them hold back, and they go at it for almost an hour. It's like a ping pong match of insults. Now, Sonic is going for some pretty low blows, "I guess being blind is bad is true, because you could have the Master Emerald right in front of you, but you can't even steal it because you're too busy looking at Knucklehead." It's very unlike him, and it might be stemming from insecurity. But Rouge is a classy queen. She remains confident and unfazed. She only sticks to the facts. Say what you want, but I wasn't the one who tricked someone into marrying me for validation. I'm not the one who plays with a girl's feelings and then ghosts her the next day. Eventually, Sonic gets worn out, reluctantly giving Rouge the victory, and hangs up. Oh, and then Shadow was present during all that, and he was just sitting there the entire time, wondering how his life ended up this way. But the next day, Rouge helps Shadow get the marriage annulled as if it never happened, and then the events of Shadow the Hedgehog start. And that's the end of my fanfic. I felt like this could fill in the blanks as to why Sonic is like really nice to Shadow, but Shadow's kind of distant with Sonic. Is it out of character? Maybe. But it's a fanfic. What do you expect? Speaking of marriage, this is not related to the Sonic and Shadow picture, but the game Shadow the Hedgehog. This game has so many interesting details that not a lot of people know about it, and I just have to share it. Do you know about the wedding ring billboard in Shadow the Hedgehog? It shows up at the very beginning of Lethal Highway, which is the second stage of the hero pathway. It's a billboard of a wedding ring, and the text says, "You need this," meaning you need rings to survive. Very funny, very clever. Interesting enough, it shows up in Lethal Highway specifically. It does not show up anywhere else in the game. Of course, Lethal Highway just so happens to be the Sonic mission, and you pass by it right after Shadow meets Sonic. And honestly, even in 2005, I feel like Sonic Team knew. They know their fans all too well. While they don't intend to make a Sonic ship canon, they keep things ambiguous enough for fans to have their own headcanons, but they seem to get a kick out of dropping crumbs every now and then. And surprisingly, Shadow the Hedgehog has a few shipping references. Veteran Shadow the Hedgehog players know that there are a total of 326 pathways in the game. Pathway number 44 is one of the more famous routes, and it's called the Miracle of Love, aka the Shadami pathway. Basically, you only do the dark missions until you get to Cryptic Castle and help Amy find cream and cheese. From there, you do all the hero missions, and you get the pure hero ending. Thanks to Amy, Shadow has seen the light and will do good. Hence, the Miracle of Love. Very sweet. But yes, there are even Sonato-coded pathways. In total, Sonic has 4 available missions, and it is possible to do them all in one pathway. If you do the hero missions with Sonic, but stay neutral for the other missions, you get pathway number 312, which is called The Spun Threads of Fate, which literally could be the name of a fanfic or a romance novel. Now, if you do the exact same path, but this time partner with Black Doom in the final haunt, battle Sonic and the Gun Commander, and you get pathway number 311, Destiny for 2. There's also a pair of shooting stars and sparks on the horizon. Pathway number 94 is called For Love's Sake. I interpret it as a Shadouche pathway. Basically, you do the dark mission for Westopolis, and then you do all of the hero missions for the rest of the playthrough. Because Rouge is the hero path for Digital Circuit, it's implied that for love's sake, Shadow will do the right thing. How sweet. The pathway names themselves are so interesting that covering them could be its own video. But I don't know if I have the energy to do that at the moment because there are 326 of them. But little details like that make the game Shadow the Hedgehog so interesting to me. But thank you for watching this silly little video. This was originally going to be a YouTube short, but then I kept thinking of more questions about that picture and decided to make its own thing. And then I started writing that fanfic, and then I remembered certain facts about Shadow the Hedgehog, and I really wanted to share it because I think it's really interesting, and I like that game. Tell me your thoughts and speculations about the Sonic and Shadow picture. It's a little detail that shows on screen for a few seconds, but it sparks so many questions. If you wrote a little fic about the event, feel free to share it with the class if you feel comfortable. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye!
Sonic. Now I remember. That day, we fought here aboard the Ark.